Starting with the camo, I particularly run multicam. iPro is Revision bullet ants with smoke lenses. They're really comfortable, low profile, so I can get my head really close down to the stock and get a good cheek weld. This is a Banshee by Shellback. It's a plate carrier, so it has cuts in both the front and the back. I don't have anything running on the sides yet. You can accept cummerbund style soft E-SAPI plates if you so wish to put those in there. The mag carriers are HSGI Taco mag carriers. These can hold M4, AK, SR25, FAL mags. Just pull on these cords to tighten it up or let them bust out and loosen them for something bigger. Pistol carriers are also HSGI Taco pistol carriers. This right here running on the chest is an Rti Wheel, stands for Rapid Tactical Interface. It's by a company called G-Code, G as in golf. And what that allows me to do is hook into these points, and I'll show you right now. You can see there's another Rti Wheel on my drop leg carrier, and I'll come back to this. Push the tabs in, this comes out, and the entire system's modular within the G-Code lineup. The holster is also by G-Code. This is the XST line. It fits Glocks. It can fit anything from a Glock 17 to a Glock 34. The leg rig's called an ISS Mule Rig. It's also by G-Code. ISS stands for Intermediate Suspension System. It's supposed to ride higher than a drop leg, lower than belt carry. I really like it. It's really fast, good lockup, and good retention. The draw is pretty smooth. What I really like about what the company did is on the bottom of the trigger guard, they even have a relief cut there. You can see the part of the trigger guard so that my finger can get up here as close as it needs to be for full grip. Then when I deactivate the bail, as soon as I come right out of the holster, I have a complete grip. I don't need to shift anything. One thing I would change about this setup is I wouldn't want this holster slightly canted inward. It slightly breaks safety, but I know that a lot of people like it because it tilts the gun outward, so it makes it easier to get to or put it back so that you can kind of clear your belt line. The other thing I would change is this Mule Rig doesn't sit high enough for my liking because I'm a shorter guy and I would want it up higher so that the weight's closer to my belt line. But as it is right now, I'm not sprinting too much and it's not going all over the place. That's just a minor gripe. I would raise it. This belt I got from Deliberate Dynamics in Draper, Utah. Really good guys. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of products. I'd recommend them if you're looking for gear. Highly recommend a good belt if you're going to be a gear-centered person and you like to carry a lot of stuff. This is my belt that I wear for everything, every day, and competitions and airsoft. This is a 511 Tee Rail Tpu Belt, thermoplastic, polyurethane, I think. It's an excellent belt. The reason I love this belt is that it's really rigid, and when a belt is more rigid, you can carry a lot of weight on it without having to cinch it tight because it resists letting the weight drag it down. Hydration carrier on the back is also HSGI. Hooks in with MOLLE clips on the back. The bladder, the reservoir, is by Source Hydration, and I give it an A+. It's not as well known as Camelback, but I haven't had any issues with leaks, cracking, or retaining the connectors. On some Camelbacks, I've seen caps like this. Sometimes they'll crack, sometimes they'll fall right off. I haven't had any problem retaining it. Another useful thing about Source is they have these quick disconnects. So that if you have a hub, they sell these hub centers where you can basically, instead of disconnecting your hydration carrier and having to doff all your gear, you can unplug, hook up to the main reservoir. They have O-rings on it to seal it, and then they just recharge you, and then you're good to go. It's on both this end for this kind of connector, and it's also on the bladder itself for a larger connector. This is just another place for me to have a reload in case I'm prone and I can't get to my primary mags on my belly, or if I'm in some sort of contorted position where it would just be more of a hassle to go down, take my hands off the weapon. At least this way, it's right back here and it's in a beer can grip style. So I can put it right back into the receiver. I can also use that for a radio pouch. It's out of the way. The plate carrier doesn't come with any sort of shoulder pad, so I just put my own EVA foam in there. If you do that, you'll be able to run and jump and play all day without any problems. Normally it would have just been these straps digging into my shoulders. The dump bag here is by Condor. It just clips into the molly on the sides. I haven't had too much of a problem with it. The only downside is it's not as slim or lightweight as something like Blue Force or HSGI. These are by Infinity Tactical. They do their job well. The only difficulty is that they're not as tight as I would like them because I'm a smaller guy, so sometimes they'll shift up. But for what I was doing today, they stayed in place and they saved my elbows from a lot of grief going prone and crawling. The knee pads are Alta knee pads and they're excellent. I wouldn't change anything about them. The nature of knee pads is that they will shift, but I prefer the buckle system on these versus Velcro on both sides. Take up the slack, you can tighten it or loosen it. And these are also in multicam. These boots are rather generic work boots that I picked up at a Foot Locker. Nothing special about them, they're pretty old. I think you can actually see a crack forming right there in the leather. Had them for a while. Good footwear is very important when you're airsofting out here. Uneven terrain, sudden dips in the terrain and rocks everywhere. You want to have something with ankle support and with really good rivets for the laces.
How high do those go up? Let's see.
Just past the bone right here.
Tell me about your bracelets.
Made these myself. The particular weave is called a ripcord cinet. And the bonus about that is if I needed to, and I have done this before, if I needed cord, undo this first knot, take out this working end through this loop, and then the two ends, pull them apart, and you've got around 9.5 feet of cord. And I've done this before where I needed a new bootlace. Busted one out on a hike. These are mostly for fashion. I don't consider these my survival tool or something that I invented. This is called a ripcord cinet. Look it up on YouTube. Secondary is an APS ACP. The ACP stands for Action Combat Pistol. It's a Glock-like replica with Glock-like ergos and a form. This holster was originally meant for a Glock 34, so you can see how it fits in pretty well. Retention bail clears it. And as soon as I draw, I'm ready to fire. It's a CO2 powered blowback Glock-like weapon. If you're used to a Glock, the trigger is incredibly light, even by airsoft standards. I like the multicam on it. I was glad that I paid the extra for it. It's CO2 powered, and the only drawback is that if you want to top off after a partial match is that you'd have to replace the entire cartridge. And like all gas blowback pistols, sometimes you might be getting a finicky, leaky mag that you might have to fix yourself. For anybody who's ever used a Glock and would like a recommendation on this, I give it maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10, which is not a bad recommendation. The gripes that I have with this are mostly with the magazines. And one other thing that people should know about the ACP is that it has a manual safety, which I don't run with, but you have to make sure it doesn't accidentally get triggered. This right here is the safety. Red, you're dead. Depress it in, trigger's locked. Depress it from the other side, and it fires. The other thing about a word of advice, if you've ever used a Glock before, dry firing this is not how you disassemble it. You actually have to have it live in order to disassemble it. On a Glock, you dry fire, you pull down these tabs, and then pull back on the slide to release it forward. But on the ACP, it has to be trigger forward, and then you treat it just like a Glock, and then you can disassemble it. The reason it has to be live is because this hammer will block the back plate from being able to pass if the trigger's been pulled. Disconnect. And then you have to lower these tabs when you're replacing the slide. This is my KWA SR12. Had it for about 4 years, 100% reliable. Stock configuration, no upgrades. This is a NC Star 3-9 by 40. The reason I prefer magnified is so I can see if I need to make adjustments downwind. It couldn't be any better. Does what it needs to do. It's currently wired for Deans. In the stock here you'll see, sorry, probably I should get that ready.
No, you're good.
We have Deans connectors. I put those on myself. And then this right here is a PPTC self-resetting fuse wired to trip at 12 amps. I've never set it off. It's a backup reassurance. I run a 7.4 LiPo, 2 cells, 1600 milliamperes. Just like with real steel, I like to mark my screws to see if they start walking or moving. Something bright fluorescent so you can tell as a reference point on the screw, and both on scope rings and on the front sight ring. I'm sorry, on the front sight screw. If they're backing out, you'll be able to see. Sometimes with mechanical vibrations, things tend to rattle, starts to unthread, and that's how you lose parts. If you're lucky, you'll see it come off. If you're not, you gotta buy a replacement. This particular weapon will shoot around 340 with .25s. That's what I've been running today. And it approaches 400, but as the spring has set in, it's about 395, 390 with .2s. I run a combination. I've been testing these. These are BAMF mags by Evike. They hold 190 rounds. So far they've been reliable with one hiccup, where if you load them to full capacity, there might be a problem with the tension. You get multi-feeds on the first 5 rounds. So what I do is I fill them up, then take the speed loader and take out 5 or 10 rounds, and the tension is perfect. These hold about 190 rounds. I just fill them to capacity till I can't depress the plunger anymore. And then when I know they're full, I'll back off and put the speed loader in there again to open the tab and pull out maybe 5 or 10 rounds. The other mags that I'm running are KWA mid-caps. These hold 120 rounds, and they have no feeding issues whatsoever in anything that I've used them in. Another point of interest is that these KWA mags drop freely if you were in a CQB roll and you needed to reload fast. But these BAMF mags take a little bit more effort. I'm hitting the button right now, and they don't come out very easily. But if you're running a dump pouch, you've got to grab your mag anyway and put it in there, so it's not too big of a problem. Semi-auto?
Yeah.
Fun switch. For me, fun is going off on my own and sniping when I find targets of opportunity. I try to roll with the team for cover because it's a lot harder to keep track of everybody, and sometimes you might not know if someone's on your team. But if you're lucky enough and you happen upon a clearing and you're running a bolt-action sniper rifle, it's the highlight of the day right there. I have a YouTube channel where I post minor stuff. I do competitive shooting. I do Tuesday Night Steel and USPSA, but it's called SLPSA, it's Salt Lake. My channel is XBEEONG X. I just say XBeong X. It's competitive pistol shooting. If anybody out there is looking to start competitive shooting, I'm new to the sport, it's a lot of fun. If you want to check out my video, see what it's like, you're more than welcome to have critique and ask questions. I want to give a shout out to my old Aisoft crew back in Arizona, displaying the Arizona attitude. I don't give a f***.
I think it's pretty unique. It might be the only one in Utah. I'm going to claim it. It's the only one in Salt Lake. It's a WeTech Katana. So we started making AEGs a few years ago, and then they made this Katana. It came out in 2013, I think.
My favorite sidearm is my full-length Oboken. It's got my call sign wrote on the side, and I made the grip, covered it with twine so that it gives it a little more style and a little more grip to it.